we doing? Happy Thursday. Happy together in the word Thursday. Happy together in the word Thursday on chapter 12 of Genesis, verse 10. Let's go. Let's go. I'm stoked. How are you? How's your week going? How is it, in high school? Oh, this is so cringy. Do you ever look at old things from high school? And I'm not just talking clothes. Like, I think what's very disturbing, yet also kind of cool about my generation being, I remember the iPhone came out when I was in ninth grade. So I was a freshman in high school when like the iPhone was really a thing and people like started having iPhones. And then I got like a Facebook. And then I think I got an Instagram when I was a sophomore in high school. But like before then, all we had were these flip phones. I guess you could kind of see this on flip phones. What I'm trying to get across is now we have like evidence, not just of photos, but of the way, like texts, the way that we used to speak and communicate to one another non-verbally. And I'm not kidding. It is kind of cringy how I used to communicate. Oh, this is so cringy. This is so cringy. I remember looking back on some old like Facebook messages that I would send with my friends or whatever. I literally communicated. So the word this, I would say dis with like a D. I was one of those girls who said dis, dat, like that, dat. Because the is so much harder to say than duh. So dis, dat, dough. Like instead of though. Oh, I cringe. I cringe. I literally remember like messaging with my friend Mary Frances, who we were in the same, she was one of my best friends, but we were in French class. We were in French class together for like all through middle school and high school. It was like our one class we were together because she was way smarter than me. And so we weren't in any other classes together, but we were in French together. And I would always leave French to go hang out with the people in that free period. And she would be messaging me like, you need to come back. And I'm like, but I'm doing disto. It was just so cringy. Anyways, I say that because I don't know how we got on that topic, but I actually don't know how we got on that topic. How I got on that topic. Yeah. Reflecting back on high school, it was grim. It was grim. I had my at my birthday party that I had with like all my friends. We had some of like Mary Frances was over and some of my high school friends. I was like, oh, we all did weird things when we were in high school. I mean, whether it was the clothes we wore or the way we spoke to one another. It's so cringy. Anyways, I'm excited to get into the word today. How we doing? I I had this dream last night that kind of, I don't know, it's kind of scary. I was telling Hunter about it right before I hopped on this podcast. And I've been inviting the Lord into my dreams because I do feel like, all throughout the Bible, God meets people in their dreams. And so I have a dream journal now and I like write down my dreams. And I've been having some very vivid dreams recently too. And some of them make sense, some of them make no sense. But last night, the dream that I had was there was this woman in like this pond situation. It was body water, lake, pond, I don't know, but it was like this pond. There's this woman. And I was like, I don't really know if I was, you know how dreams are weird. Like, I don't know if I was like physically in the dream or this was just like God being like, look at this situation. But I remember the woman caught my eye. She was in the pond because there was this, ow, just hit my elbow. There was this massive snake, massive, and it had red stripes. And it was like swimming around her. And I remember thinking, like, something's going to happen. Like, this is really scary. Something's going to happen to this woman. And then what was weird though was it was almost like her countenance. I was like, oh wait, no, she knows the snake is there. And they're actually, it's almost as if she looks like she's delighting in it. Like the snake is her friend. Like she's just like I'm telling y'all, weird dream. But then this is what was weird. The snake started like, it was like, I think it was a python because it was super long. And again, red stripes. And it started like, you know how pythons, they like squeeze their prey? It started like wrapping itself in and around her. And I remember the countenance of the woman like was just so joyful. She like, I don't know, in my mind and my dream, I was like, oh my gosh, she thinks it's hugging her. She thinks this thing is a good thing and is loving her, but it's about to kill her. And she has no idea it's about to kill her. So, anyways, that was my dream. And I woke up, forgot about it, and I was just walking Ruthie. And I was thinking, like, oh my gosh, are there snakes in these bushes? Like, do I need to be worried about walking Ruthie? Yes, I'm a very nervous multi-poo aunt. So that did come to my mind. And then I remembered my dream. And I remember talking to Hunter. I was like, I feel like the Lord, I don't know, it's just this impression of like, there's a bunch of people in this world, men and women alike, but a woman was the one in my dream. So, like, a bunch of women in this world that we are flirting with sin, thinking that it's going to bring us life, but we don't recognize sin. It's not hugging us, it's killing us. Just like that snake represented the enemy, and how at first, like, the enemy desires to kill, steal, and destroy. That's his desire for your life. And when we flirt with sin, like when we flirt with boundaries, when we flirt with things that are not God honoring, it feels good for a second. Like the reason people become alcoholics is because alcohol felt good for a second. The reason people become addicted to pornography is because pornography felt good for a second. The reason that people become addicted to exercise, addicted to anything, even good things become bad things when they become a God thing or when they become God itself. I feel like we live in a world that we are all tempted and flirting with sin, and we think it's bringing us life, and we think the snake is hugging us and likes us, and we think the sin is hugging us and likes us and it feels good, but it's really killing us. And I was like, dang. But so that was my dream. That was kind of heavy. That was my dream. I was like, I don't know what to do with that. I'm telling you guys, that's what I'm doing with it. No, but I think in my own life, I'm like, wow, I've been listening to the Bible recently. I typically read the Bible as we're doing today. I love reading the Bible because I love annotating and like getting in the Hebrew translations of things, and it, oh, just love it. But recently, I've been praying for a deeper desire to get more in the Bible. And I love listening to podcasts, like I'm guilty of. I created Together in the Word because I was speaking to myself. Like I am the person that loves listening to podcasts more than I love listening to the Bible. Like I love listening to people talk about the Bible more than I do listening to the Bible itself. And so I've been praying for the Lord to give me a renewed heart to like crave the Bible. Y'all, how often do we feel like it's up to us to discipline our way into the desire for something that God calls good? Where is God in that equation? Like I'm realizing now, especially now after like a few months of this, I do like my craving for the word of God is so different. It's so much bigger. It's like I typically listen to a sermon every morning. I didn't listen to a sermon this morning. I listened to Romans audio Bible because I was like, I don't even care if I don't like, I believe the Holy Spirit will let me know what I need to know from this. I don't need a pastor to explain it to me. I say that because I didn't get there from my discipline. I got there from asking God to give me that heart. In Ezekiel, there's a passage that says, God will remove a heart of stone and give them a heart of flesh. It's referring to the his children, the Israelites at the time. But what a picture for us all, because there's also a verse in scripture that it says God is the same today, yesterday, and forever. So God is a God that can change hearts. So whatever that thing is in your life, like if you're going back to my dream, if there's sin in your life, which we all have sin in our life. I mean, goodness gracious, I have been struggling with the sin of gossip lately. And it's been really convicting me. I think I told you guys this last time. Like, especially when there's like tea at work, I love nothing more than to call up one of my like best friends at work and be like, you can't believe what just happened. And I'm like, I know that's sinning. I know it is. I also struggle with the sin of covetousness, which is jealousy. It's like looking at something somebody else does and being like, dang, I can't even be happy for you because I'm so jealous that's not happening to me. I struggle with that sin too. I say that because we all struggle with sin in our life, all of us. And when it comes to the parts of our hearts, like I think it's important just to remember we've just got to be honest with the Lord and He will change our hearts. It's not up to us to bootstrap our way back into disciplining ourselves into good behavior. Christianity is not behavior modification. It's an invitation to be honest in a relationship with a God that will never leave you nor forsake you. And He can change your heart, change your taste buds, for these things that you once crave, like gossip or drama or jealousy or judgment or alcohol or sex before marriage or whatever it is, stinginess, greed, you know what I mean? He's responsible for changing that. I have an interesting introduction to today's conversation. Typically, I'm like, and this is how we're going to relate it to the word. I don't have one of those today, so we're just going to dive in. Romans 12:10. Let's go. Also, side note, I was on a meeting the other day. There was like 7 clients on this call. And one of them were literally, and granted, I love this team. I love this team. But they were just on the call and I was drinking. This is bone broth, by the way. Bone broth. But they were like, Annie, is that bourbon? Like I know we have a good relationship, but you're really cutting it loose on this client on this meeting. I was like, oh my gosh, no, it's bone broth. I don't even drink bourbon. Or I don't drink at all. But I just was like, so just in case you know, I'm not cracking open the Bible with some bourbon in my hand. This is bone broth, by the way. All right, 12 verse 10. That's interesting right there. So remember, God had a promised land for Abram, which was Canaan. Abram went to Canaan. And now we see that there's a famine in Canaan. There is a famine. There is a challenge. There is a deficit in the land that God promised Abram. Can you imagine what's going through Abram's mind? You promised me this land. I traveled all this way. Now there's a famine. There's a famine. And I think what's interesting is this is before Sarah got pregnant, right? So again, God made Abram a promise in 12 verses 1 through 3, which is basically like, I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great. So that you will exemplify divine blessing. I will bless those who bless you. The one who treats you lightly, I will curse, and all the families of earth may receive blessing through you. So God is basically promising Abram a nation. It says, I will make you into a great nation, which Sarah, his wife, for those of you who aren't familiar with the story, she's old. She's infertile by biological means. Like she is, there's no eggs cooking up in there. I mean, let's just say it like it is. There's nothing to work with. Um, and that's the situation that we're in. Yet, God still says, I'll make you into a great nation. And so I think there's this parallel. Oh, Hunter just walked in. Hello, Hunter. You want to come say hi? I asked him to say hi because I knew he was going to walk in and interrupt me when I recorded. And I proactively said, would you please come say hello to the fam?
Hello.
Hello. We're in Genesis 12:10.
Wow.
You can stay for this point. You can stay for this point. So we're talking about how there was a famine in the land. So Abram went down to Egypt to stay for a while. So essentially, again, Abram made it to the promised land. I think what's interesting is this parallel of like, there's this aspect of you obeyed God, you did everything that you were supposed to do, you weren't deceitful, you were honest, you were obedient, you submitted, you surrendered, and you made it. Like you got to the place God said He had promised for you, not what you thought it was going to be. Like I imagine Abram wasn't expecting there to be a famine in the very place that God promised that He would send Abram and be the place that like He will birth this great nation from Abram. So I think what's interesting is you kind of have this like famine on the surface. There's all this stuff not going right on the surface. But then internally, also at this point, Sarah's not pregnant. Like God promised that there would be a great nation through Abram. They get to Canaan. I mean, if I was Abram, in my mind, it would be like, I think without trying, sometimes we do put transaction onto the Lord. Like, okay, if I do this, I'll get this. So I imagine in the back of Abram's mind, it was like, I just need to get to the promised land, and then I'll have an idea of how God's going to make me a great nation. Yet here we see he gets there. There's a famine in the land. And I just wonder if there's some aspect of famine in the heart of Sarah or Abram. Like there's this aspect of like, okay, God, I know you're good, but I'm confused because there's a famine of evidence as to like why the heck you did this and why you sent me here and what this is supposed to look like. And not only that, but the greater purpose. You said I was going to be you were going to make a great nation for me. Like, there's a famine of a journey or a workflow or a path to making that happen. And I think a lot of us can find ourselves in that position where it's like, Lord, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like I've done everything you said for me to do. I stayed when you wanted me to stay. I left when you wanted me to left. I've prayed. I've talked to you. And yet on the surface, being this all there is? You know what I mean? I think that's a question we all like. I imagine Abram was like looking at the famine in this land that was so severe he had to go. And it was kind of like, is this all there is? And we'll kind of read further, but anything you want to say to that?
No, I think that's great.
Um,
Expectations.
what about expectations?
They're not always what we think they're going to be. Whenever we have expectations, sometimes God always had something greater. So I love what you're saying about Abram having expectations and going into the land that God called him to, but there was a famine, and
Yeah.
Sometimes God's got something greater for you, even though the temporary doesn't necessarily look like it.
Yeah. Well, I think what's really telling of kind of this aspect, okay, I know you gotta go.
I gotta go.
Oh,
Wow.
love you.
You too.
I think what's interesting about this aspect of like famine on the land and famine, almost like a faith famine, is what you see Abram do next. So in 11, as Abram approached Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, look, I know you're a beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but will keep you alive. So tell them you are my sister, so that it may go well for me because of you, and my life will be spared on account of you. So, why do I think there was a little bit of famine of faith going on in Abram's heart? It's because nowhere in this entire conversation of what he said to Sarai, or as he approached Egypt, he never involved the Lord in what he was feeling. You know what I mean? Like he never, to the recorded text that we have, he never said, Lord, let me think back to that altar I built for you before you did anything for me on the promised land of Canaan. Let me go back and remember all the ways you've been faithful up until this point. There was none of that. It was, this isn't working. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm going to leave. I'm not going to talk to God about it. And then, oh no, another challenge pops up. Not going to talk to God about it. Just going to say what I think will happen. Literally, he says in 12, when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but they will keep you alive. So tell them you're my sister so that it may go well for me because of you and my life will be spared. Be very careful of what you think will happen and what you say will happen, before you've spoken to the God, the only one, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the creator and the redeemer and the protector. Be very careful before your human self, your finite self, your limited self says will happen before you talk to God, who is the only one that knows what's going to happen because he's the beginning and the end. Like, we kind of read this and I feel like we're like, okay, come on, Abram. Really? Should have known better. I mean, Abram got that one wrong, but I do not. I get that one right. Talk to God before decisions. How often do we say this is going to happen? So there was a time in my career where I was really unhappy. I was very unhappy in my career for a lot of reasons. It was honestly, and I've talked to you guys about this on the podcast before, it was just not what I thought. Um, so I'm in corporate tech sales. I think like I definitely thought by 28 years old, I was gonna not have to do corporate America. And I could be doing my podcast full time. I could be writing books full time. I could be doing social media full time. Like financially, that just hasn't been my story, which is why for financial stability, I've like continued to work my corporate sales job. And I remember this time in my life, it was kind of a culmination of disappointment. Like I felt like, Lord, I know you've called me to write books. I know you called me to do this podcast. I know you called me to do all these things. And when you called me to do these things, when you kind of called me to be brave and like, because they were scary, they weren't easy. I remember being 18, like, I'm supposed to write a book? Who's going to listen to an 18-year-old? But I did them. And in my mind, kind of what Hunter was just saying about expectation, in my mind, I did have an expectation. If I do this, then I won't have to do this, or you will do this. And in my mind, the way that that went was if I do this, then I won't have to work corporate America anymore. Like, Lord, I'll be obedient to doing this thing, but I'm expecting you for an outcome that I've pre decided determines success, which is these do so well they can financially replace or prevent me from having to do my corporate job. Kind of like we see here, I imagine Abram is like, okay, Lord, I'll go to the promised land, but I have this expectation in my head of what that means you'll do for me if I do. I imagine if I go to the promised land, then you're going to make me a great nation. All the while, God was making Abram a great nation before he even got to the promised land, while he was in the promised land and there was a famine, and thereon and thereafter. How do I know that? Because we're reading about his story today. Abram's story didn't start when he was in the promised land. We all have these if then give get kind of transactional things because that's the world we live in. Unfortunately, the world we live in conditions us to say, if I do this, then I'll get this. If you do this, then I'll get this. If you do this, then you get that. But that's not how God works. And thank God that's not how God works. Because yes, we might have moments where we like are obedient and do the thing, but more often than not, we're not doing the right thing. We are sinning, and because of God's mercy, we don't get what we do deserve. And because of his grace, we get what we don't deserve, which is him and his goodness and a plan that works all things together for good. And and so I just share that because I do think there's this aspect of two things. One, us projecting our expectation onto God of what we think he owes us if we're obedient to him. And I'll be honest, that was a wrestle I had to go through very recently. Oh, I mean, I say recently, relatively. It was in that season I was just talking to you about, where I just realized, whoa, this isn't what I thought. Like, I didn't think I was going to be writing books and doing a podcast in addition to my corporate job. It's not what I thought, Lord, when you initially called me to this. Um, and now I'm beginning to see some of the fruits of why I think he's having me do both, which have been so special and worth it. Still hard at times, but worth it. Um, but I think the other thing to that point, you keep seeing Abram say, the Egyptians will say, they will kill. But they will keep you alive. Like he's projecting future, again, expectations of what he thinks is going to happen. See, we put expectations onto like three categories of things: ourselves, God, and people. And typically, when we fall short of the expectations of ourselves, we're almost like, okay, that happened. Get over it. I fell short. But when other people fall short of our expectations or God does, I feel like it takes us it's some grudges can harden our hearts to wanting to talk to those people or to the Lord. Just as we do with people. Like there's someone in my life right now that we not on great terms. Um and it's been really hard. It's been very hard. So hard. I've cried a lot of tears about it. Um and there was a lot of expectations that just weren't met, and expectations, some of which like I didn't know were expectations, but I guess were expectations. And it just it's really hard. It's very hard. And it's affected me very deeply. Um and naturally, what do I want to do? I want to like not talk to that person. I want to not be around them because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to have that tension. And sometimes I think we do that with the Lord. The Lord becomes that person that either did not meet your expectations or you feel like you didn't meet his. And it's not even like you had a big blow up conversation. I don't think that's a lot of our nature when it comes to like these kind of dynamics. I think it's just we slowly stop talking. We slowly stop talking to them. Here we see Abram, he never talked to God about what he should do with the famine. He just went to Egypt. He never talked to God about his fear that the Egyptians would look at Sarai and think she's beautiful and what he should do in that situation. He never talked to God. Makes me think of Enoch that we read about in the beginning, that is just like for 365 years Enoch walked with God. Like I think again that's the goal. It's like in all things, in all concerns, in all fears, especially when God doesn't meet the expectations that you put on him, which is like another level of tender, right? Because I get it. Like the Lord is all powerful. So what does that mean? That means that when he doesn't meet our expectation, it's not because he wasn't able to. And sometimes people, when we put an expectation on people and we're upset they didn't meet them, in the back of their mind, it's like in the back of our mind, we're like, well, people are not perfect, right? And like sometimes they fail. And so there's an element there, but with God, who's perfect and almighty and never messes up, when we had an expectation for him to do something and he doesn't do it, part of what makes that suck even more is because we know he can. I mean, I think about a lot of my friends right now that like really they're single and they want godly husbands. And they see a lot of their friends. Like I was in this season. I was in the season when I was before I met Hunter. And it was like, okay, what sucks about this, God, is because you know I've been praying for this forever. And I know you're able. And you're still not doing it. What's up with that? But what I want to encourage you in those moments, it's so easy to numb out. It is easy to just treat God like that person that we have tension with that we just slowly stop talking to and accept we're just not going to be close with again. The difference between God and that person is God is perfect and his mercy and his grace is perfect, which means he wants you to invite him in on that. Just that you're upset there's a famine in the land. I'm going back to the text. Not just that you're upset that you're a famine in the land, but you're upset that there's a famine in the land and he hasn't made you a great nation yet. And he promised he would. But it looks like you're upset at him. You're upset at him because you know he's all powerful and you know he could do everything and you know that he's all honoring and you know that he's all loving and you know that with just a word, with just one word, he can change the tides of a nation. But he hasn't. He's let you be in the famine despite his earlier promise. He hasn't brought the husband. He hasn't brought the healing. He hasn't brought the clarity. He hasn't brought the new job. He hasn't brought the promotion. He hasn't brought the redemption of a relationship. He hasn't brought that person's heart to become tender of forgiveness. He hasn't brought the child. He hasn't brought it, and you know he's capable because you see him doing it for everybody else. What do you do in those moments? What do you do in the moments that God promised to make you a great nation, yet when you got to the land that he promised you, there's a famine? Do you, like Abram, just go about your business and you start saying what will and won't happen because you don't really feel like talking to the God who actually knows what will and won't happen again because he's let you down? Or do you bring him the parts that let you down? Do you bring him that? Do you say, God, you know what? Not only is my belly hungry because there's a famine in the land, but there's a famine in my heart of faith because it's not meeting the expectation that I thought you were going to do. Do you tell him that? Y'all, if you tuned out, please listen. That, that, that's your prayer life. That's the real stuff. That is where faith grows, is when I call them the closet floor moments or your kitchen floor moments. Like last week, I had one of them. I had to go in my closet and shut the door, and I literally just wept. I wept over something that happened last week. I just wept. I had no words. And you know what I was weeping about? Not just the situation, but weeping about my disappointment in how God didn't do it like I thought he was. And even saying that just sounds so disrespectful and flippant because God's all powerful and all knowing, and he's the only one that knows what will happen. So he knows what's good for me in the situation, not me. But it doesn't change the fact that I felt sad. I even said, God, I feel cheated right now. I feel like you gave me half of your goodness with this news. And I feel teased. That is where faith grows. And my situation hasn't changed since I prayed that prayer last week, but my heart is still soft. See, I think your heart hardens not just in one moment, but it's in these small decisions we make to not talk to God about the real stuff. And then you look back and you're like, I can't remember the last time I prayed. And it's like, well, when did that start? I don't know. I just kind of stopped. In those moments where we're upset, where we're really upset, we have a decision to make. We can either move forward like Abram did. And of course, God's still a redeemer. He still worked with Abram and blessed Abram. That's how good our God is. But think of all the heartache Abram could have spared for himself and his wife had he talked to God about what was really bothering him. Because I don't think it was just the famine. I think it was his heart. The ways he felt God had let him down. Dear Heavenly Father, there's a lot of things going on in the minds of the people tuning in today. I don't know them, but you do. I can't see them, but you can. I don't know their hearts, but you know every bit of their heart. And so I'm going to pray the prayer of Psalm 139, 23 and 24. For then, Lord, I just pray you search us and know our hearts. You test us and know our anxious thoughts. Please search all ways offensive in us and lead us in your everlasting way, Lord, because we need you. And your invitation is for us to bring the real stuff to you.